Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now. Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. You're back at the spot, the place where the conversations are pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Today, we're going back to Australia. We're going to be with Carrie Benedet. We're going to talk to her about her podcast. Yes, what that feels like to be an independent news source, to be able to carry a message, to hold an audience, to engage and interact and deliver. How does that excite her and ignite her? She's also a contributor in an anthology. She's going to do a reading for us. But we want to talk about her coaching and her speaking ability and her leadership skills and what she's doing in the area of education. We can always learn something. I say we're here on this planet for two reasons. One is to learn and the other is to teach. And she's going to teach us both today. How are you, Carrie?
Oh, April, that was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're
Hello,
welcome.
everybody. I'm just waving you all and sending you a huge hug of love from down under.
Mm-hmm.
I love that some of you would know the song. I live from I come from a
Yeah,
land down under,
yeah.
and
I come from the
it's
land down under.
that's it. See, you already
Yeah,
know
I
it.
love it. Uh, I've been to the land down under, and Brains, let me tell you, it is I believe, and I tell people all this all the time, that it is a portal to the next civilization. That is one of the first places that civilization was even recognized from the onset. The Aborigines have an extra chromosome. There's an energy, there is a feeling, there is a draw as you come
Yeah.
to Australia. And so tell us how you grew up there or landed there and a little bit about your story and your journey.
Oh, well, thank you. And you're so right about the heart. My background you will show you some Indigenous artwork. I've got it all
Mm-hmm.
around me. Um, I'm English Irish background. My mother was Irish background, my father English, and I think my greatest feat is that I married a Northern Italian who was born in Italy, came to Australia when he was about one or two, out on the ships when we were filling up Australia with skilled migrants to help us build a huge hydroelectric scheme. And so we've got a family of four grown-up licorice all sorts, four living assets, we call them. And we have now eight little Australians. So we are most fortunate to have been able to live here in Australia. I haven't seen all of Australia, but it's part of the progress of life as you go through it. But one of the things, April, I want to go back to our Indigenous, about 80,000 years old, our First Nations are believed to be now. That the land is just incredible, full of different quandaries. But when I took a group of educational leaders to East Arnhem Land, the top of Australia, when you arrive, all you see is this orange dirt everywhere,
Mm.
orange hot. Crocodiles just underneath the water, so it's over 40 degrees. You can't get in the water to swim or get cool because they are just sitting there. But the power of the land and the message and the people is what really matters. And we're really rich. And we're still pretty young when we consider the value of our Indigenous, and more we're finding that our Indigenous are moving forward for themselves, for their own people. Their artworks, their storylines, just amazing. And I've got some very good contacts as well. So thanks for letting me
And
tell
that,
you that.
yeah, and well,
Yep,
and that's a blessing because they're very guarded as well too, because there's been a lot of
yep,
mistrust. That's like the Native Americans here in the
yep,
United States,
yep.
and it's not knowing when people come in and they want to
Mm.
settle and they think that everybody wants to be right. Put it that way. Nobody wants to give up in these days.
Mm,
So culture is very important to you, and you were in education and leadership. How do
mm.
those three things create the recipe for success?
Well, what's culture? How many of us love to travel and to explore? So I actually think culture is akin to that metaphor of a backpack. You
Mm,
put it on your back and you go for a walk. You go for a walk, you go for a wander, you go to explore. And it's the space. I think culture is the space that we can look at things through a different lens. And so for me, culture is really around the heart-centered way people treat each other. Doesn't matter where we were born, what color our skin, whether we've got brown eyes, blue eyes. Doesn't matter. We are all creations people. We are all magnificent in that creation. And we're part of this massive constellation of twinkling all around the world. So part of what I love is the culture is actually deep diving into traditions, the language, why this is so, the astrology, the food, the music, everything, the families, what it is, where we've come from. And nearly every culture has a story of adversity and vulnerability, of fighting or always continually standing up for themselves and leaning forward and progressing. And at the moment, our culture has just come in more tightly than ever. Our access is within seconds. And
mm,
so the culture here means that we can really meet the thousands and millions of beautiful people that we have, every nationality. And that's one of the things that the podcast Thriving Matters has allowed me to do. How we thrive in life and work, we're all ordinary guys and gals, but doing extraordinary things in life and work. And so I think that's what the culture means to me. How extraordinary we are in what we have been born into, what we've been raised to, what we've actually moved from into something else.
mm.
And thank heavens for a little bit of gumption. I like to say grit and grace, but a little bit of get up and go, and to have some circle around you that says, come on, April, you've got it in you. Come on, you
Exactly.
can do it. Come on, Carrie, you can do the same.
Absolutely. So you're a great speaker and orator. How did you start the podcast?
Well, I was in a large education organisation here in Sydney for 24 years, did a number of roles. I'm basically a cooking and sewing teacher. That's how I started
Oh, wow.
when I left school. I'm a home economist. So give me 100 people to feed. That's not a problem, right? That's an easy thing. But I stayed at home for a decade looking after the licorice all sorts, looking after the four kids and sewing. So I made cash money. And the podcast came out of this deep desire for me to do more of what I love to do, and that's the walking alongside somebody. That we can call it coaching or mentoring, but walking alongside somebody and doing more of what I love, bringing the emotional intelligence work in. I mean, it takes a lifetime to become you. We're
Yeah.
always becoming and not content to be. And so putting all that together and in the leadership role, because I think now that leadership is in crisis across
Oh,
the world. And so I'm very happy to say it. I do believe it. And there's many ways we could lead forward. And so the reason I did the podcast was COVID hit. I had left the organization.
mm,
Any of the work I had lined up just went boom because all our schools got closed down. We had to go virtual. And so what I did was I thought, oh my gosh, there's no organization where when I walk in the front door, someone says, "G'day, Carrie, how you going? Listen, how are the kids? I know they were sick yesterday."
right.
Or how's your mother-in-law? How's your mum? Oh, did you have a great, like little things. Or I take in something I've baked and they go, "Oh, love your tiramisu. I've got a great reputation
Mm,
for a top tiramisu." But that's the thing that I lost. And I went, what am I going to do? And I thought, you have a digital passport. You can go anywhere around the world. So that's what I did. I started this podcast called Thriving Matters, and we talk to ordinary guys and gals who are doing extraordinary things in life and work. And I find out how do they get out of bed every day, what brings them to the point that they're in now, where they're moving to, and what little bit of advice or what gems can we share with each other.
Hmm.
That's how I started it.
And each one must teach one. There's so much to
Yeah.
learn. Like you said, holding space for one
Yeah.
another, with one another. That is so important. And again, leadership, what is leadership these days? What about followership? I'm
Yes.
not really into, like I tell people all the time, the groupie love on social media. I don't need a million followers. I don't need the clickbait. I need
Yeah.
impactors and influencers, people that are going to make a difference, people that
Mm.
are going to pour into someone else's reservoir of dreams and create overflowing streams. That is what is
Nice.
important. And that is what is needed, especially with the younger generation. For some reason, they dismiss us as
Mm.
our wisdom. They learn a different way. They have all this technology, but nothing beats the grassroots wisdom of your grandmother or your great grandmother. And that's what I love about indigenous people, because that is
Yes.
how they live, is through storytelling.
Oh,
You know,
you are spot on. Their story around sitting around the campfire, that metaphor of the campfire, we sat in Arnhem Land and the women did women's business, the men did the men's business, and of course the women wanted to do the men's business because they were out fishing for stingrays and feeding us, but we were doing the weaving, so the collecting, the dyeing, the weaving, and the making. But the conversation, the wisdom that got shared, the listening, even the silence
mhm.
was amazing to the point where when we left, some people were so emotional, it struck them so deeply that they needed time to process. They were able to get a few things out, but they said, I need time. This has been absolutely massive
Oh yeah.
because we had a question a day and it was about you focused on that question in the spaces that we had. Um, it's pretty significant. And I love the fact that you mentioned the spaces because we hold the space for our friends, our family when something goes wrong. We do the same when we're coaching or mentoring anybody or working in a group towards a project. We hold the space for each other so that we can find something that's a different solution, that we can listen and learn, but also, I want to add a little bit of love in there. Can I add that in? The
Please.
care that we have for you. I want to be treated as well, I want to be respected. I want to be treated with respect and valued. And so I'd like to be able to do that for others. And I think the listening does that. Most
You
coaches
know
like
what?
to have a chat.
But with that, Carrie, I have to add that you got to have some boundaries. You have to teach people how to treat you,
Yes, that's true.
because
Absolutely.
they will run amok
Yep. Yep.
and then try to come back and make you feel guilty. Don't buy into that. We
Yep.
know right from wrong. And if there's something that you like that I don't like, I'm not going to force that on you to make you go
Yes.
along to get along.
Well,
Allow me
that
the capacity and the space not to like it and still respect me.
But what you're talking about there, I believe, is your self-awareness about what your boundaries are,
Right.
what you would expect. And if that's not going to happen, well, you don't need that. You don't need that in your life. So you respectfully decline or remove yourself, or you talk it through and say, look, this is what's going on, and I need to be able to know this, and this. And
And
so you
that's how
quite
you grow. That's how you grow and expand as a human
mm,
being.
mm,
Because again, it's about learning and teaching
yeah.
and not being so rigid in wanting to be right all the time.
Mm.
When it's your turn to be right, Carrie, I'm gonna let you be right. When it's your turn to win the game, I'm gonna let you win the game. But when it's my turn, allow me to do the
Yep.
same. And
Yep.
let's walk parallel. Let's walk
Yep.
side by side. So, talking about walking side by side, you became a contributing writer in an anthology. Tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Well, interesting. I mean, doing all this work over the last few years, I've gotten to meet so many amazing people. Everyone has a story. And usually, I mean, we can use the word vulnerability, right? We can use that and we can use adversity. And I was speaking to someone this week because I was doing a podcast with her, and she said, "Look, I don't use adversity anymore. I use the term life's moments, what life has dished up for me, what appears out of nowhere, something that totally blindsides me, that I'm totally surprised at, can affect my health, my economic basis, my financial basis, can affect family, can take away something from me or give me something new." And so I quite like that. But the book came about because I thought there were so many people telling me that they had no hope for the future. This is just after COVID, the tail end of COVID. Look what's happened. There was a whole lot of in the darkness, there was still light. That's what I was seeing. That there were some people who were able to still see, here's an opportunity this way. I'm going to have to take this branch, not the one I actually thought I was going to take.
And
I'm open and adaptable to do that,
and it
right?
was intense there in Australia. I mean, you were locked down, locked
Mm.
down. You
Huge. Yeah.
really, it
Mm.
was massive. So that also contributed to people's mental health.
Yes. And so the book really inspirational stories from leaders who are influencing the future of culture, business, and education. So I'm a firm believer that even though I worked in education, we get our students ready for the world of work, for the world of business, for living in families, visiting. And in Australia, most of our students who finish school want to do a gap year. They need to leave. We are an isolated island, the smallest continent of the world. We're a long way away, right? It takes us a whole day to get to Europe. The
I
same to the States, right? Same either way we go. New Zealand has a little bit longer. I must just add that. But I love the New Zealanders. But I just went, oh, how could we do this? So I went to nearly everybody that I had done a podcast with, had worked personally with, had done, various other podcasts with or projects during COVID to basically to entertain ourselves or try and construct some work together. And so I ended up with 12 from around the world and in different areas. And so we all got to write a chapter. I thought the easiest way to start writing a book, just start with one chapter, small step, right? But get everybody together. So there was a whole learning process in that. I got myself a fantastic book editor and book coach, Jane Turner. I have a lot of time for Jane. And the good thing was she was living close to me. And so an advantage for me is to actually meet someone face to face.
Right. Mhm.
You can do a lot over Zoom, but there are sometimes you just feel that you need just that little bit of extra to
Mhm.
be around them to pick up more. And so I've made some fantastic choices, and Jane's one of those. So Jane was on board with us. We're actually working on another book at the moment. So, but this one was with others. So I thought I didn't think I had it in me to do a whole book. Now I know I do.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't know what you don't know. Can you
That's it.
can you read us a little excerpt from the book so we can get a feel and a
Okay.
taste?
Here it is here. It's the
Global
beautiful
matters.
Global Matters. Yeah, we'll get it in there, but I would love to. So thank you for asking me. I'm going to just do a little lead in. It starts like this. Looking back on it now, trekking the Kokoda Trail was the most momentous thing I've ever done in my life. In saying that, I don't want to displace or downplay the incredible experience of doing life with my partner Luch and parenting our four precious children together. That said, I have to give myself credit for embarking on a challenge without a buddy. Just before leaving Sydney for Port Moresby, my daughter Cara hugged me and said, "Mum, there's no shame in having to come home before you reach Kokoda."
Mm.
Little did she know how much of an incentive she provided me with when she said those words. And by the way, most of my family thought I was stark raving mad.
Oh wow.
So I'll just move down the page a little bit. This brings me to a point of sharing a transformational afternoon in the wilderness when I heard a booming voice say, "Give me your hand." It seemed an understatement to say that this was a pivotal moment in my life. We were walking the Immature Ridge towards Kokoda. Unseasonal monsoonal rain had been relentless all day. I was a bit slower than the other 29 trekkers, so Jobson, who was my porter, and Joe, the foreman, and another one of the porters had been hanging back with me all day. At one stage, I lost my footing and started to slide down the ridge. I couldn't see clearly or find anything to grab hold of, so I continued to slide until I managed to grab my legs and wrap my legs around a thin rubber tree trunk. Shaking and terrified, I knew the only way out of the predicament was that I had to let go of the trunk and take the enormous hand that was reaching out to me. It was literally one of those life and death situations we usually only hear about. So I had to draw on my capacity to trust. And in spite of the instinct to hang on for dear life, I had to let go of the rubber tree so that I could be pulled up the ridge to safety. In order to do that, I had to park my terror,
Mm.
calm myself down, and concentrate on listening to the instructions I was being given. All the while, images of my beautiful family kept crossing my mind as time seemed to stand still.
Mm.
I had to fully put my trust in people who were ready to work together with me to get me out of danger. We really didn't know each other at the time, but we understood that each of us needed each other. It was as if there was a silent pact bringing out the deep care we had for all humanity, whilst honouring the lives lost in the pursuit of freedom in the special place that we were in. I learnt a lot about myself that day.
That's
The Kokoda Trail in Papua New Guinea was the last stand at the end of the Second World War before the Americans had joined the war.
mm.
And the Japanese had actually come into Sydney Harbour, but they'd also gone into the top of Port Moresby and were working their way, the top of New Guinea, and were working their way towards Port Moresby, and Australian troops were put up there. It was the last
Mm.
bastion. I do not know how they survived. It
Well,
was mammoth. And so it's like a rite of passage. I went, and the reason I did it, it was for my 50th birthday. It's a few years ago now, but I wanted to go and give thanks
right.
for living in a free country that allowed me to bring up four beautiful children and give them the opportunity that I've given them. So, two of us in our family have done that walk. My eldest son did it first, and then I decided I needed to. And I knew I needed to change what I was doing because my family was growing up and leaving. That role as a mother and carer had changed, even though I'd worked all the way through in education.
It's holding that space, but it's a rite of
Yep.
passage. And at
Yes.
each interval of our life, there will be a juncture, there will be a door that we will need to walk through.
Mm.
And thank goodness that you had the bandwidth, because if I had to fail and slid, I'm going home. I'm I'm
Oh,
I'm deflated at this point. I'm going home. But if you've
we're talking
overcome,
4,000, we're talking 4,000 meters, and the incline was like that, yeah,
wow.
it was big. It was big. And I wear glasses. And so I couldn't even see the rain was that strong. We would just soak to the bone. And so it was very easy to go down.
To do that and to be adventurous and be a risk taker. That is what it's about, is that we have to adapt to change.
Hmm.
Nobody likes change necessarily. It is uncomfortable, it is unsettling, but
Hmm.
it is also necessary. We have to evolve, we have to ascend. This is not it. This, what we're going through now, and I truly believe that COVID was a precursor. It was a way for the entire world to pump their brakes and stop. People don't want to
Well,
believe that. It was more than just a pandemic, it was a revolutionary epidemic.
oh, and we have the proof. We have the proof now that it was just that. Yeah.
And so What are we going to do with that knowledge? How are we going to partake in that wisdom? How are we going to record that story in history?
Hmm.
How are we going to share that with our children and encourage them and inspire them, but also listen to them as to what they want? What is their expectation for their future? Because I tell
Hmm.
people all the time, I got more years behind me than I got in front of me, and I am going to live my best life. Let me ask you some fun questions. Okay, I love this part of the show. What do you consider living? Define for me your best life.
Oh, golly, that's a great question. My best life is being able to love. That's my best life. I think being able to love, share the love, and not expect anything back apart from the love that you show yourself. I mean, I do like the hugs and the or the love of the family. But I think to be able to love, not to be caught up so much in you and woe be me, that to me is the best life. Um, yeah, that's what I'm going to claim today.
Okay,
That's today's to be loved.
right,
And to be able to do it through whatever gets thrown up at you, to be able to continue to love
right,
and not feel as though something that you've lived in a useless life. To be able to say that I know that when Carrie was alive, she loved me
right.
and I was loved. Yeah.
Right. And love is so subjective, it's
Yes, it comes
very
in many forms.
individualized. And
Mm.
you have to communicate with people and ask them, what is your love language? What is it that makes you feel special? What is it that makes you, what lights you up? What is it that makes you cry? Let's ask you that. What?
Well, I think the way of love for me is to find those spaces, to hold the space for people.
Mhm.
So whatever, and that's when the love goes. So it's a good question. Thank you for asking me. Yeah.
Good. If you could time travel, go back to the past, stay here in the present, project to the future, where would you land?
Oh, well, I am curious about some of my ancestors. I am. I've been told that I was part of the resistance.
Oh,
Yes, First World
is
War.
that
Yeah.
surprising?
No, no, I've always had a thing for Joan of Arc, with the breastplate and the yeah
Absolutely.
Wonder Woman sort of that sort of attracts me as well. Um, I think the future interests me. Um, this notion of the energy vibrations and how you know what our possibility of manifesting things,
Right,
being part of that. That I think it's interesting a lot of people, and more people during COVID really tapped into their skills, their skill base,
right.
and their tools that they have, and perhaps they hadn't ignited. So the future's there as well. Hmm.
What are you pouring into those grandchildren of yours?
Well, they call me Carrie Ma, uh, yeah, which is nice. I didn't want to be grandma, and my boys say, "Mum, we know what that's about. That's you don't want to look like you're old. You don't want to be old." What do I pour into them? I'm pretty sure I show up. I show up. I don't pester, and I try to love. And I must say, I've gotten much better at listening. When I was a young mum myself, I was just so bloody busy. And I tried to be Mrs. Perfect, really. I
Yeah.
tried to have that was the era that I grew up in, translated a bit into my parenting. Um, but what I now pour into them is love,
Mhm.
books, time. It doesn't matter if it's only a scary time. We do that. And
And
the
at this point in
possibility.
our life, I have to think about it sometimes. Is it even worth it? They say, oh, a grandmother is gentler and kinder. Well, we've been through it and we really realize that maybe we put too much energy, emphasis, and focus on things that did not allow creativity, that did not allow our children to have a voice. You know, we're
Mm.
looking at disbanding our Department of Education here. How do I feel about that? I was really alarmed. But when I look at the test scores of these children that are all grouped together in the third grade, they're not all going to read the same. They're not all going to
No,
understand mathematics the same.
no.
There's no creativity, there's no field trips. And then I see some of these children that are homeschooled. They have 3, 4 hours of instruction and they're absolutely brilliant. Great conversationalists. They are able to use manipulatives and understand. So, what we have to do is we have to work and mold that. And as grandparents, that is our gift from a storyteller perspective because
Mm.
it's like, okay, this is what I did, but where do you aspire? How can we merge these two things together? And that's so important. If you were an appliance in the kitchen of all places, what appliance would you be, Miss Susie Homemaker?
My head just went to a blender,
I did not
and
put.
then I thought I quite like the coffee grinder. No, I'm gonna go with the blender
Gonna go with
because
the
we
blender.
can we can create new things. We
Mm,
can create new things. We can use whatever we've got. We can nourish ourselves with it, nourish others with it. Um, I got to tell you this, I recently made a Basque burnt cheesecake, and first time I'd ever done it. And one of my grandsons was sitting on the bench near me. We made it for, it was only recently anyway, and I'd never made one. And so I had a go. And he watched everything. He did the maths in his head for how much cream cheese we needed, how much cream, you name it, he did it. And so I learnt about him a little bit more because he tends to like to be the joker, get attention from being the joker or the one that mucks up a little bit. So he sat there, and then I got a message. It was perfect. It was just delicious. It got devoured by all of us very quickly. But I got a message a couple of weeks later to say, by the way, we've just made our own Basque burnt cheesecake. And um, Oscar says, but that's not how Carrie Ma did it. Mum, she didn't put the sugar in like that. She didn't do that. Mum, you got to do it as Carrie Ma did it because he wanted it to turn out.
and that's the beautiful thing that he was
And
able
I
to.
loved it.
He
Yeah.
was able, and he will remember that
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
entire
Yeah.
life. He will
Yeah.
never forget that experience. I
Mm.
think this today, I change up. I want to be the trash can.
The trash can. Okay.
The
Tell me
trash
why. Tell me
because
why.
I want to be the place that people dump the things that no longer serve.
Oh, do you know, there's something about being able to make a decision and say, that's it, you're
That's
gone.
it.
No
That's
more.
it. No more.
Yeah.
No
Because
more.
we hold on, April, we hold on to so much. That's not useful.
It's not useful.
Yeah.
I did my daughter's friends. They're different. I mean, who's 37 and goes to Disneyland every Monday? Every Monday.
Oh,
I said,
wow.
yeah. I said, how long have you been on the mouse? She says, Mommy is the happiest place on earth. But her and her friends got together and they did a burn offering. And we wrote things that we wanted to manifest on bay leaves or
Yeah.
things that no longer served us, and we tossed them in a fire. And it
Yep.
was something about that release, about letting it go.
Yep.
Because you get rid of things that no longer serve you, it's like
Yep.
shoes. You've had some shoes, but you've worn them out. You've had that cute dress, but you're no longer a size 8. You have to let things go to create expansion in your life, to
Mm.
create space to bring in new things. Again, we are ever evolving individuals. And in closing, Carrie Ma, I like that. That's cute.
I'm
Um,
just I'm just finding something. But you keep talking. I just want to find you something. Hold on.
what is your legacy? How do you want to be remembered outside of the love that you provide?
I do want to be thought of as someone that made you feel valued and special and loved. But I also want to be thought of as someone who was passionate about the type of leaders our future world needs when I'm long gone in the box. And that's about the next generations. It's about what my grandkids will be doing. And heaven helps, I won't be here to see that. I'll see some of it, but not for the extended family. So I'd like to think that I've left a little part of goodness and oomph, some grit, some gumption for the younger generations to say, you too, don't give up too easily.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Looking for something
Now,
to share with me?
now the song I wanted to, there's a one of my favorites is a song from the Suppers. I don't know if you can use it. Get out most days you see. I love walking around, it's good for me. Everywhere I want to be. The good times. There's good times. There's good times in every day. And even if those bad times or the ones that you remember that take over your thinking consume you, there's still light. There's still something there. There's a spark of light that can actually get those good hormones running, get you to being a little bit more optimistic in the way you're looking at things. So it
Ab-
doesn't all have to be pessimistic.
Absolutely. And leadership can be in your home, in your faith, with your friends, with your grandchildren, with your partner. You don't always have to, and good leaders are good listeners, and they
Well,
provide options and they elevate others. They bring them with you. You don't boss people around because you're the leader. You facilitate, you negotiate,
yeah,
you reason with people, you
you
respect.
host the situation.
Absolutely. And you hold the space. Thank you so much for holding space with us today, Carrie. You are the best. Tell us how to get the podcast, a copy of the book, and if people want to know more about you or to work with
Okay.
you.
All right. The podcast is called Thriving Matters. Um, it's on Podbean, Apple, Spotify. You can find it nearly everywhere. The best place to go is carriebenedet.com, um, and CarrieBenedet.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. We've just launched a new membership program called Global Leaders Connect, and it's going well. We're getting that running. The book, anyone who's listening and really interested, why don't you message me on Facebook, which is easy, Carrie Benedet once again, and I'll make sure that copy comes across the oceans and into your home address.
Okay. Well, we're looking forward to
Okay?
that. Absolutely. We want to make sure there's no tariffs.
Not in my not in my world anyway.
Yeah, but getting it over in here is a mess. But thank
It's
you
a mess.
so much
Okay.
for your love, your light, your wisdom, and
Oh,
my mouth watering for a piece of that cheesecake now.
oh my gosh, it is gorgeous. April, it has been an absolute delight. And I really appreciate and I feel very honored that you asked me to be on your podcast. So I'm sure all podcast hosts love some love, everybody. So how about you give April the love she deserves? She's consummate in what she does. She's full of heart and she loves everybody, but she'll also have some expectations of how we treat each other. I think that's the
That's
best
what
way
I say.
forward.
And we can agree to disagree and not be disagreeable. That's what I'm saying.
We just stay curious.
Absolutely. Ladies, go in, love, like, share, and subscribe. Hit that like button. It costs you nothing. Leave a comment. Let Carrie know what you think. Maybe she'll leave the recipe for the cheesecake. You never know.
I
Thank you
can do that.
so much for all that you've done. I look forward to you. If you come this way, come see me. And if I come that way, I'm going to come see you. Okay?
Absolutely. I'm in Sydney. You easily found.
All right. Bye bye, Brains. Have a really good day. We love you.
Bye for now.